Hey everyone, it's Todd, the Cybertruck truck guy, and today we're doing part 2 in our detailed comparison between the Cybertruck and other conventional trucks. So today, as you can see here on the screen, we're doing the Ford Raptor, and the comparison, or the prep part of this, was actually a little bit easier than the last video, because the Raptor, because it's a high performance truck, it actually has a lot fewer options, since all of the performance features are sort of optimized for a specific configuration. Now, if you don't know much about the Ford Raptor is a truck that was specifically designed to do well in high-speed off-roading, Baja type off-roading or rally racing kind of driving. But it's a very capable off-road vehicle in general. And the capability comes from several different factors. So the first component that makes it so capable is that it's got a pretty potent engine, 3.5 liter EcoBoost, that produces quite a bit of horsepower, about 450 horsepower, or it might be actually 500 horsepower. We'll see when we get to the specs. But the next thing is that it has a legitimate off-road racing suspension by Fox Off-Road that's specifically been designed and tweaked for the Raptor. And it is a high-performance suspension. A suspension like this would probably cost you $4,000 to $6,000 plus. Next is the fact that through the other components of the design, the clearance of this is actually one of the highest of any stock vehicle, about 11.5 inches off the ground. And the last thing is it's got an advanced set of computer assist electronic features that actually allow it to navigate all kinds of different terrain and different off-roading conditions, with more help from the robot brain of the Raptor to help you get traction or scale obstacles, or it's optimized for different scenarios. So the combination is a very, very capable off-road truck and a very nice, comfortable, enjoyable truck to drive around in when you're on the street. So what you can see here is that the only thing I've done to this is I've selected the cab, and the cab is the Super Crew cab, which is basically their 4-door cab option. And since the Cybertruck is also a 4-door truck, that is the one that matches up to the Raptor. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot of options that you can add to the Raptor. So the main extra is the packages. So you essentially have their base package, and it's kind of Spartan on the interior. It's leather. It's cloth seats. They're not heated. They're not. The driver's side has power, but the passenger side is not powered. It has the standard kind of manual thermostat control options, and it doesn't have any of the advanced driver assist features like blind spot detection or adaptive cruise control, auto dimming lights, any of that stuff. So on the next one up, essentially all it adds is power heated leather seats. That's basically it. You're paying and rear defrost. But not much. If you want to get all of the like 360 degree camera and the advanced driver assist features, and also this gives you the option to add the front off-roading axle or differential to the front. You have a lock-in rear diff on this as standard, but you can add this front specialty differential that helps in off-road situations. Beyond that, there really isn't a whole lot you can add. There's a tonneau cover and some other stuff, but I'll cover that when I actually get into the comparisons. One thing I wanted to show you is when you search for Raptor specifications and you go to this intro page where you can actually navigate to the specifications, you'll get something that looks like this. And that's basically saying, hey, do you want to build your own, or do you want to buy one that's in stock at the dealer? What I want to show you is the ones that are in stock are almost always much closer to the high end than they are to the low end. So even though technically you could theoretically buy a Raptor at this $58,135 price, the chances are pretty good that if you go looking for it, you're going to have a hard time finding it. And this kind of speaks to something I've talked about before, which is most people don't buy the cheapest option. Whatever they get, they usually add bells and whistles to it. And the dealers know this, so that's why they stock the ones that are most likely to fit what the people want, what most people want when they show up. The other thing I want to show you before we jump over is I want to show you that someone commented in the comments that the single motor had a 10,000 pound towing capacity in the last one. No, 7,500, just like I said. Now, it does say 7,500 plus, so we have no idea what all these pluses mean. But in the dual motor, the only thing that's different from the single motor is a faster 0 to 60 time, a little bit longer range, the fact that you have four-wheel drive, and a higher tow rating. That's it. All right, so let's go take a look at our comparison. So I did something a little different than I did in the last one. What I did was I tried to offer some different configuration options when we're doing the price comparison, so you can actually see what would the cheapest one be and then what would sort of the intermediate and most expensive options be. So obviously we can see over here the Cybertruck is pretty straightforward. You just $49,900, that's it. Over here, you have the starting price, and on the basic, that's all I've done. I just took the starting price, and I didn't add any options to it. On the kind of comparable one, I think most people that are going to spend $60,000 on a truck are probably going to get a few upgrades. One of those is they're probably going to get the leather interior, and they're probably going to get the bed liner and the tonneau cover. Now, this isn't their crappiest tonneau cover they offer. This is kind of their mid-grade one. It's still crap. I really wouldn't probably add a tonneau cover unless it was metal, because part of the reason I want it is for security. So the one I think is the most comparable is the standard with the luxury package that has the advanced driver assist like adaptive cruise and blind spot monitoring, but no lane keeping that I could see. So the advanced driver assist is still nothing compared to what you get as standard in the Cybertruck. Then I included the bed liner, but then I included the more expensive retractable metal tonneau cover. That's $2,000. I didn't charge anything extra for installing it like I did with the Ram, but I did add the stowable loading ramps. They have a power. I thought it wasn't available, but then I discovered it was available, so I added it over here. Now again, in the Cybertruck, you just have all window above you, and this actually does give you the ability to open it up to the actual outside. But so maybe you would get this, maybe you wouldn't, but I put it in there because I thought people that are going to the high end are usually, they're just going to go after all the options. So, and then I added an onboard air compressor so that we could get semi close to the Cybertruck capabilities. So those are the range of choices if you're comparing it to the Raptor. So when it comes to fuel, the mileage is a little bit worse than the Ram. They average, according to Ford, I actually found nobody agrees that you can actually get this high of range. I'm going off Ford's actual range, so this is probably optimistic. But I've also heard that you're probably looking at more like 4,000 or 400 watts per kilowatt hour. No, sorry. You're looking at 1 mile or 1 kilowatt hour will give you closer to 2.5 miles, some people think. So I might be optimistic on both of these. If so, they're about the same level of optimism. So I just opted to keep it that way. So you can see that annually, using our $15,000 a year over 7 years, because we need to come up with a scenario, that gives us $20,000 or $2,000 a year and almost $15,000 over 7 years versus $600 and $4,200 on the Cybertruck. So again, when we go looking at costs, let's take a look here. So remember, I didn't include financing charges. I didn't include insurance. I didn't include maintenance. I didn't include fees or licensing. I want to make this as simple and as straightforward a comparison as possible. And I don't want to confuse it with something that could be argued over like maintenance costs. We know that in general, electric vehicles have far lower maintenance costs than their ICE counterparts. But to not muddy the waters, I just am focusing on depreciation, okay, and fuel. So, and I use the same depreciation schedule, even though we know that electric vehicles, or at least Teslas, are depreciating at a lower rate than their ICE vehicle counterparts. So I'm trying to give the ICE vehicle the most favorable treatment as possible in this comparison. So after, once you get over 100,000 miles on any ICE vehicle that's not like a diesel heavy duty truck, you're looking at a depreciation somewhere between 65 and 70% of the original value. So I'm using the same percentage of depreciation on both. Even if I change this to 65% or 60%, the ratio of cost would be the same between the vehicles because you're just starting with a more expensive vehicle on the Raptor. Okay, then we put in the fuel cost. So we have depreciation costs that range between $40 on the low end and $52 on the high end. Then we have $14,000 per year in fuel versus $4,200 in the Cybertruck. That means our total cost of ownership over 7 years in just these two categories is $39,000 with the Cybertruck dual motor and between $55,000 and $66,000 on the Raptor. So that is a difference of between $16,000 on the cheapest version and $27,000 over 7 years on the most expensive version. Just when we're talking about cost, we're not talking about any performance related things yet, but now we're going to. We're going to talk about specs. Okay, so here we have the Raptor and the dual motor Cybertruck. So bed length, you can only get a 5.5 foot bed with the Raptor. That's the only option you can have. That ends up being 67 inches long versus the bed length of the Cybertruck is 78. They did not give the overall bed width, but they did give the bed width between the wheel wells, which is what I would call the functional bed width of 50.6 inches. My guess is the Cybertruck is going to be close to that or even slightly above that. Okay, now we're going to start talking about off-road capability. So remember when I said the things that make the Raptor a great off-road vehicle, and it really is a great off-road vehicle, is the suspension. So we know our suspension is going to be pretty dang close, if not superior, to the Raptor's. But then you start looking at things like clearance, angle of approach, and angle of departure. So I didn't explain this very good in my last video, but if you can imagine, this is the front and rear angle of the Cybertruck. And it's like this for the Raptor, and it's like this for a regular pickup truck. What happens as you go up a steep incline or down a steep incline is that you're much more subject to hit the flatter angle of approach and angle of departure, much more likely to hit those, the front end and the rear end, on the surface that you're trying to drive over in an off-road situation. So the steeper your angle of departure and angle of approach are, the less likely you are to damage the truck or get hung up on an obstacle when you're off-roading. So the length of these are both almost identical. The clearance, okay, the difference in clearance between 16 inches of flat clearance, no differential pumpkins hanging down or other obstacles. So the difference between 16 inches and the 11.5 inches of a very off-road capable Cybertruck is about the same amount of difference between the clearance of a regular passenger vehicle, 5 to 6 inches. I think the Model 3 is 6 inches. So the difference between these two vehicles is the same amount of difference between a passenger vehicle and the Raptor. That's amazing. That's an incredible amount of clearance, as I've referenced in the past, and I will be doing a comparison video. That's what the original Humvee has, 16 inches of ground clearance. Okay, so range, you got a problem here. If you don't have a problem here. I don't think you have a problem here. And I also think there's going to be either Tesla available or aftermarket available extension options. But you have an advantage with the Raptor that it has 648 miles of range when it has a full tank versus the 300 miles of range that you have with the Cybertruck. Okay, yep, we acknowledge that. I will say generally when you're off-roading, I cannot think of a time when I've been off-roading that I have driven more than 300 miles in a day. Maybe one time on my motorcycle when I was like beating hell out of Dodge, I might have done over 300 miles. It's super, super rare to be traveling off-road and get that kind of miles in a day. So now, as to what could be available aftermarket or in the future, we talked about this when Jordan was on the live stream last week about this battery extension idea. But where that comes into play, you can see here, Cybertruck wins on towing by about 2,000 pounds, but look at payload. Okay, so I want to show you this. Here is a Model X. Well, what are these? Are these 80 kilowatt, 95? No, I don't know what kilowatt hour this is. So let's just call it 80 to 100 kilowatt hour battery for the Model X is 1,200 pounds. Okay, 1,200 pounds. You have a payload capacity in the Cybertruck of 3,500 pounds. You could put a full Model X battery in the bed of a Cybertruck and still have double the payload capacity of a Raptor. And that would give you a range approaching what the Tri-Motor has, I would guess, 500 plus miles of range if you did that. And so far, everyone I've asked about this, there's no reason why this is difficult to do. And it doesn't take up that much bed space. You can put a lot of stuff on top of there and still be fine. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of doing this, but it just strikes me as being super reasonable that this could be an option you can do. If you're going to be able to charge it with solar panels, why can't you charge it with an auxiliary battery? Strikes me as totally reasonable. Okay, so again, you're going to have enough payload capacity, put a whole battery in, and still have double the payload capacity of the Raptor. So in terms of horsepower and torque, I had to guess at these. Again, there's speculations out there, but these are the numbers that it seems like people are generally, coming in at. 800 is probably high. It's probably on the horsepower side. It's probably more like, 600 to 700, but I just put in a range there. On the torque, this probably, I said the single motor was going to be somewhere in the 250 to 350 range. So I found another number that said it was close to 330. So if you took 330 and double it, you'd be at 660. And then we don't know what kind of advancements or how they might change the motor. So I put up to 800 foot-pounds of torque. Probably it's going to be closer to the 650 than the 800. That's my guess. 0 to 60 speed beats it on that. 4.5 seconds versus 5.1. Again, I want to remind you, there was on the specs, it says less than 4.5 seconds. The truck that beat the Porsche 911 in the drag race in the reveal was a dual motor. That has the Porsche has a 0 to 60 speed that's sub 4.5 seconds. I can't remember what it was, but it's under that. And then the Motor Trend journalist that wrote in the article about the first ride review says his impression in accelerating was that it would do 0 to 60 in the low 4-second range. So I actually think 4.5 seconds is high. I think we're going to see a lower number for the dual motor. And then you can see here the fuel economy. These are the numbers that Ford gave. Like I said, a little bit suspect. Now, Ford actually gave a cubic foot number on their bed. So if you had a tonneau cover This is the amount of storage you could have if you put a tonneau cover on the back of a Raptor. 52 cubic feet versus 100 cubic feet of the Cybertruck. So in every factor, in every specification, except for range, that's the one place where the Raptor has it. In cost, angle of departure, clearance, towing, payload, horsepower, torque, acceleration, the dual motor that costs substantially less than the Raptor beats the Raptor. And I would also say 5.1 seconds, that's hella fast for a truck. That's the fastest production truck there is. 5.1 seconds. That is a very, very fast vehicle. So the things that aren't referenced about the Cybertruck is how many of the people that buy a Cybertruck actually take it off-roading. And I would say the number is very few because they don't want to damage their $70,000 paint job. And Sandy Monroe talked about this in some of his videos, but I'm telling you that I have seen a lot of Raptors in pristine condition because people just don't want to, they don't want to go out to a gravel road and drive 60 or 70 miles an hour and get scratches all over their paint job. You'll be able to have so much more fun with the Cybertruck because of the stainless steel exoskeleton that isn't prone to getting chips and flakes and dings and all that other stuff. You'll actually go have fun with it. You'll actually do the thing the Raptor is designed to do, but none of their owners actually take it out doing. I would encourage you, there's some really cool videos on YouTube showing what the Raptor is capable of doing. And it's an amazing vehicle. And I think the Cybertruck dual motor will be as capable as the Raptor is. It'll be the most capable high-speed stock off-road vehicle that exists. So, okay, that's it for this comparison. So what's ahead? Well, next week I'm going to do a comparison of the tri-motor versus a heavy-duty diesel pickup truck because it's such an unfair advantage to compare the tri-motor to any of the half-ton. Half-ton is the 150 or 1500 series. Those are called half-ton trucks if you don't know. 3/4 ton is where you actually have the heavy-duty line of trucks where you actually have much beefier trucks that have diesel engines. They're designed to work, tow, much heavier loads, have much heavier payload capacities. And so we're going to be doing that. I had some requests to do some comparison videos of the Cybertruck versus some of the recently announced, or not even recently, some of these trucks have been announced for a while, like the Rivian, like the Badger, like the Atlas truck. I mean, there's a bunch of them coming down the road. And I will do that once I can find enough specifications to do a comparison. I am also going to do, probably going to do another one of these types of comparisons with the F150 because it's the most popular and people want to see kind of the cheapest, the medium, and the most expensive comparisons. And I think you're really beginning to see the Cybertruck has exceeded cost parity, like I said in the last video. So I have some other comparison videos. I'll probably do the diesel one next week, and then I'll take a break and do some other videos, and then we'll come back to doing some more comparisons. Supposedly the Badger truck gets revealed at the end of June, like in a week. So maybe there'll be more details about it then. And I probably am going to do a video on hydrogen because I'm really curious about it. And I can't find anything that really gets into the math of its viability if we really can get down to $4 a kilogram production cost or better. So I think there's some interesting things with hydrogen. I think there's some issues with Nikola and, Trevor, whatever his name is specifically, but I think conceptually there may be a place where hydrogen does fit a niche. And that's probably coming some point. Otherwise, the best way you can support the channel is to subscribe. And that's it. Live stream this Thursday, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. Hopefully we'll have a chance to go through some of these recent videos done about the Cybertruck at the Peterson exhibit in Los Angeles. That's kind of interesting. All right, that's it. Well, catch you next time. Bye.